2 flights of stairs. That's the distance someone's world quietly shrank to before they ever thought to themselves that they were sick. First, they took the lift when they were carrying something, then when they weren't. They thought to themselves that they were just getting older or out of shape. They had a chest that never quite cleared after every cold. Here's the part that kept them undiagnosed for years. Every doctor who heard short of breath had a sensible first guess, and it probably wasn't this, because the person had never smoked a single cigarette. And the disease we're going to talk about has been welded in everyone's mind to the cigarette. The disease is called COPD. And for today, no blame and no fear. We'll discuss exactly what COPD is, which has only half to do with whether you have ever lit a cigarette, and the handful of completely different roads that can lead to it. And the one idea that explains why a smoker's disease is the third leading cause of death in the world, and why half the people who have it have never been told. When most people hear COPD, they picture the same person: older, a lifetime of cigarettes, an oxygen tank, a self-inflicted ending. That picture is doing something quietly harmful, albeit how accurate it tends to be. It tells everyone who doesn't fit it that whatever is happening to their breathing must be something else. The name itself is a fog: chronic, obstructive, pulmonary disease. 4 words that hide what it actually is. So here's the fact that cuts through it. COPD isn't defined by smoking, and it isn't defined by a cough. It's defined by one thing: air goes into your lungs fine, and then it won't come back out fast enough. The doors out of your lungs, they get narrow and floppy, and they stay that way. That's the whole disease in one sentence. And the moment you define it by what it does instead of who gets it, the cigarette stops being the point, because there is more than one way to wreck the way air leaves a lung. For most of the last century, COPD barely had a coherent identity. It was either chronic bronchitis or emphysema, an elderly person's bad chest. Then in 1977, 2 researchers drew a single famous curve. They followed working men over years and showed that lung function falls slowly in everyone as we age, something we already knew. But in susceptible smokers, it falls off a cliff. That curve was significant and important because it saved lives. It tied a preventable illness to a modifiable cause. But then the curve got overread. Smoking accelerates the decline, quietly hardened into smoking is the disease, which hardened into no cigarettes, no COPD. That last step was never what the data intended, but it's the version that made it into waiting rooms, intake forms, into the half a second the clinician spends deciding whether your breathlessness is worth a second look. So the picture in everyone's head is built out of a true fact that got stretched a little bit too far, which means the people who fall outside the picture of a smoker don't just get missed by accident. They get missed on purpose, by a filter that was designed to catch smokers and dismiss everyone else as a non-suspect. So ask the real question: can you get COPD if you never smoked? The answer is yes. A large share of COPD worldwide is in people who never smoked. By various counts, somewhere between a quarter and nearly half. Worldwide, smoking explains under half of the suffering this disease causes. The cigarette is the loudest road in, but it was never the only one. So let's look at the other roads because they're not exotic. The smoke you don't choose, such as the indoor smoke from cooking and heating fires that billions of people breathe every day. The years of dust and fumes at work. The quiet inherited deficiency, a missing protein called alpha 1 antitrypsin that leaves the lung without its own defense and causes a liver condition called liver cirrhosis. The childhood of asthma or early infections, or simply lungs that were built smaller from the start. Same destination, air that won't come back out, reached by completely different ways. And here's why that matters more than it sounds. If the disease has one famous cause, the doctor only has to ask one question to screen for it. The moment the disease has 6 roads in, that one question stops being a screen and starts being a blindfold. For decades, we assumed COPD always works one way. You start with a normal, full-size lung, and something, usually smoke, burns it down faster than aging alone would. Damage over time. But when researchers actually followed thousands of people across their lives, that turned out to be only half of the story. In one landmark analysis, about half of the people who ended up with COPD had followed exactly that classic path, a normal lung that declined fast. The other half hadn't declined fast at all. They started adult life with a smaller lung than the rest of us, lungs that never reached full size, and then declined at a completely normal rate. Same finish line, no accelerated damage, which means the thing that set them up for COPD happened in childhood or before birth, due to things like diseases caused by prematurity, maternal disease, infections, asthma, or the kind of air they breathed, decades before anyone ever lit a single cigarette. So sit with that, and sit with what that does to the blame. Half of this disease isn't a lung someone ruined, it's a lung that was never built to full size in the first place. You can't smoke your way out of a starting line you didn't choose. And you can't be blamed for it either. Here's the point that dissolves the whole picture. Did you smoke is a population question. Across millions of people, it does predict who gets COPD. It's a useful signal. But your doctor isn't treating a million people, they are treating you. And the moment a population signal gets used as the gate for an individual diagnosis, it stops doing its job. Because for you, the question that actually matters isn't how you got here. It's whether the air is leaving your lungs the way it should. So, what actually finds COPD? Not your smoking history. It's a breathing test called spirometry. You blow out as hard and fast as you can, and it measures whether the air comes back out fast enough. It takes about 10 minutes. It doesn't hurt, and it's the only thing that can confirm or rule this out. The reason half of people with COPD have never been told is rarely that someone read the test wrong. It's that the test was never ordered because the person didn't look like the typical picture. And to be completely clear, nothing here is a reason for anyone who already living with COPD or asthma to change a single thing on their own. And nothing here means you should diagnose yourself from a video. I can't tell you what you have, and I wouldn't try. What this means is narrower and more useful than that. If you've been quietly breathless and it's only ever been explained away, the reasonable next step is your own physician and a specific question. That question is not, do I have COPD? The question that reorganizes the whole conversation is, has my breathing ever actually been measured with a breathing test, or has it only ever been guessed at? That turns a stereotype back into a question with an answer, and that conversation belongs with your own physician, who can see your whole picture. A label is a shadow. It's a fast, cheap stand-in for the thing itself. Useful right up until you mistake the shadow for the object and stop looking at what's actually casting it. Smoker's disease is a shadow. The lung and whether air can leave it is the object. Prevention is learning to look at the object and to notice when someone is only showing you the shadow because it's the shape they already expected to see. And if today turned on a 10-minute breathing test almost nobody is sent for, the obvious next question is how your lungs are doing right now, before anything goes wrong. And there's a single number that tracks that better than almost anything else on a checkup. I took it apart in the lungs video earlier on this channel.